Racism, addiction, a tragic end. Junkyard Dog's story is not for the faint of heart, but it's a story that needs to be told. Let's explore the life of this wrestling legend in all its complexity. Now, for those who didn't have the pleasure of witnessing his greatness, let me tell you, Junkyard Dog was huge in the 80s, especially down south. This man was an absolute force of nature in the ring. He was known for his incredible strength, his raw charisma, and that infectious smile that could light up an arena. He'd head to the ring with a chain around his neck and a dog collar, and the crowds would go absolutely wild. But JYD wasn't just about being a big force. He had this incredible connection with the fans. He was a true people's champion. He'd take the time to shake hands, sign autographs, and really make people feel special. He had this genuine warmth and humility that just drew people to him. But behind the cheers and the victories, JYD was battling some serious demons. Let's talk about some of the controversies that surrounded his career. One of the biggest issues JYD faced was substance abuse. Like many wrestlers of his era, he struggled with addiction, particularly cocaine. This wasn't uncommon in the wrestling world back then, with the constant travel, the pressure to perform, and the access to drugs. But it took a toll on JYD's health, his finances, and his career. We saw this reflected in his weight changes. In his prime, JYD was a physical specimen. He was ripped, agile, and could move like a cat. But as his addiction worsened, he gained weight and lost some of his explosiveness. Sadly, some people even started calling him junk food dog, which was just plain disrespectful and hurtful. Despite his incredible popularity in territories like Mid-South Wrestling, where he was a multiple-time champion and drew huge crowds, JYD never quite reached the same level of success in the WWF. He had some memorable moments and feuds like his battles with Greg, the Hammer Valentine, and King Harley Race, but he never won a major championship there. Some say his struggles with addiction and his changing physique played a role in that. Another controversy surrounding JYD was his abrupt departure from Mid-South Wrestling. He left for the WWF while still a top star, which angered promoter Bill Watts. There were even rumors of racial tension between them, with some accounts suggesting that Watts used a racial slur towards JYD. This adds another layer of complexity to the story and highlights the challenges black wrestlers faced in the industry at that time. Speaking of racial issues, we can't ignore the fact that JYD, as one of the biggest black wrestlers of his time, faced racism and discrimination throughout his career. But things weren't always easy for him. Sadly, some people were mean to him and treated him unfairly just because of his race. He had to work extra hard to become successful because some people didn't want him to succeed. One time, the fabulous Freebirds played a mean trick on him. They pretended to blind him with hair cream during a match. A lot of people thought this was really wrong and hurtful. It made fun of stereotypes about black people, and that's never okay. Unfortunately, JYD struggled with drug addiction. This made it hard for him to do his job as a wrestler, and sometimes he even missed wrestling shows. This hurt his career and caused problems with the people who ran the wrestling shows. He also got in trouble with the law a few times, which made things even worse for him. It's important to remember that even though he had these problems, JYD was super popular and loved by his fans. He was so much fun to watch and always excited the crowd. He was a hero to many people, especially black fans who looked up to him and saw him as a symbol of strength. And now we come to the most tragic part of Junkyard Dog's story, June 1st, 1998, a day that would forever be etched in the memories of wrestling fans worldwide. JYD, a man who brought so much joy to others, met an untimely end. He had been driving home to Mississippi after watching his daughter, LaToya, graduate from high school in North Carolina. Can you imagine how proud he must have been? He probably couldn't wait to see what she did next in life, but Junkyard Dog never made it home. While he was driving, his car crashed. It seems like he might have fallen asleep while driving, which is really sad. Even though he was strong and tough in wrestling, he couldn't survive the car accident. He was only 45 years old. When the news spread, wrestling fans all over the world were heartbroken. They missed his big smile, his exciting matches, and the way he always made them feel good. A few years later, in 2004, Junkyard Dog was given a special honor. He was put into the WWE Hall of Fame. This is like a big museum for the best wrestlers ever. Since he couldn't be there, his daughter LaToya accepted the award for him. It was a very emotional moment, but it showed how much everyone loved and remembered Junkyard Dog. Now for the real fans, here is the epic career of my man. I'm sure you'll love it. Sylvester Ritter, better known as the Junkyard Dog or JYD, was a true legend in professional wrestling. Born on December 13, 1952, JYD made a name for himself in Mid-South Wrestling and later in the World Wrestling Federation, now known as WWE. His nickname came from his days working in a wrecking yard, and it stuck with him throughout his career. In 2004, JYD was posthumously inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, a well-deserved honor. JYD's entrance was something fans couldn't forget. He'd walk to the ring with a big chain around his neck, attached to a dog collar, while Queen's "Another One Bites the Dust" blasted through the speakers. The crowd loved him. He was full of energy, larger than life, and always ready to entertain. He was such a big deal that he headlined shows with massive crowds, even selling out the Louisiana Superdome. JYD made history as the first black wrestler to become the top star of his promotion, breaking barriers and paving the way for others. Ask any wrestling historian, and they'll tell you how electrifying JYD was. Brian Shields, a WWE historian, called him one of the most charismatic wrestlers of the early 1980s. And if you've ever watched his matches or promos, you'd agree. JYD's in-ring style was all about power and entertainment. He wasn't just about winning matches. He wanted to make sure the crowd had fun. His signature moves were legendary. First, there was his famous headbutt, which he often delivered on all fours, almost like a playful dog. Then there was the thump, his devastating power slam that would leave opponents down for the count. Fans loved it so much that JYD even had the word "thump" written on his wrestling trunks. His incredible strength was another reason fans couldn't get enough of him. JYD could pick up and slam the biggest wrestlers of the time, including giants like the One-Man Gang, Kamala, and King Kong Bundy. Now let's be more specific. In the summer of 1984, Junkyard Dog made a big move, leaving Mid-South Wrestling to join the World Wrestling Federation, WWF. His debut happened on August 10, 1984, during a Georgia Championship Wrestling taping at the Kiel Auditorium, where he defeated Max Blue. While he wasn't always in the main event spotlight, JYD still stood out. Fans absolutely loved him, and he quickly became one of the most popular wrestlers in the company. One of the things that made JYD special was how much he cared about his fans, especially the younger ones. After matches, he'd often invite kids into the ring and dance with them. This wasn't just fun for the kids. It made him relatable and lovable to everyone watching. He had a unique charm that few wrestlers could match. JYD competed in the first ever WrestleMania in 1985, where he faced Intercontinental Champion Greg Valentine. JYD won the match by countout, but since the title can't change hands on a countout, Valentine kept the belt. Later that year, JYD had another big moment when he won the Wrestling Classic, a major WWF tournament. He defeated top stars like Randy Savage, the Iron Sheik, and Moondog Spot to claim the victory, showing everyone why he was such a force in the ring. During his time in the WWF, JYD had some memorable rivalries. He feuded with King Harley Race, Greg Valentine, Adrian Adonis, the Funk Brothers, Terry and Dory Funk Jr., and Outlaw Ron Bass. At the first SummerSlam in 1988, he faced Rick Rude, but the match ended in a disqualification. By November of that year, JYD decided to leave the WWF and explore new opportunities in wrestling. JYD didn't stay away from the spotlight for long. In December 1988, he joined the National Wrestling Alliance and made his debut at Clash of the Champions '04. He quickly made an impact by saving Ivan Koloff during a confrontation with the Russian assassins. Not long after, JYD won a 50,000 bunkhouse battle royal, proving he still had what it took to win big matches. In 1989, JYD teamed up with Ivan Koloff and Michael Hayes to take on the Russian assassins. One of his standout matches that year was at Clash of the Champions '06 in New Orleans, where he defeated Butch Reed with the help of a live jazz band that played him to the ring. However, JYD hit a bump in the road when he no-showed the WrestleWar '89 pay-per-view and was briefly let go by the promotion. But by 1990, he was back and ready for action. JYD's return saw him move into the main event scene, where he began feuding with Ric Flair over the World Heavyweight Championship. While he didn't win the title, he scored several big wins over Flair in house shows, and even defeated him by disqualification at Clash of the Champions '01. Around this time, JYD joined forces with Sting, Paul Orndorff, and El Gigante in a group called Dudes with Attitudes. In 1991, JYD achieved a major milestone by winning his first WCW championship. Teaming with Ricky Morton and Tommy Rich, He won the WCW Six-Man Tag Team Championship. They held the belts for a few months before losing them to the Freebirds. JYD continued to wrestle for WCW, feuding with stars like Arn Anderson and teaming with wrestlers like Ron Simmons and Barry Windham. After taking some time off, JYD returned to WCW in 1992 at Super Brawl 2. He immediately made an impact by saving Ron Simmons from an attack by Abdullah the Butcher. JYD spent much of the year wrestling in tag team matches, often teaming with Big Josh or Ron Simmons. In 1993, he formed a tag team with Jim Neidhart and feuded with Dick Slater and Paul Orndorff. By the summer of 1993, JYD wrapped up his time in WCW and moved on to the independent circuit. After leaving WCW, Junkyard Dog took his talents to the independent wrestling scene. He wrestled for promotions like NWA Dallas and the National Wrestling Conference, NWC, in Las Vegas. Here, he faced off against familiar names like the Iron Sheik, Mr. Hughes, and the Honky Tonk Man. Even during these years, JYD remained a fan favorite. He continued to wrestle and entertain, and his passion for the business never wavered. In 1998, just 1 month before his passing, JYD appeared at Extreme Championship Wrestling's WrestlePalooza event, showing he still had the energy to excite a crowd. In addition to wrestling, JYD founded a group called the Dog Pound Stable, working in an independent Mid-South promotion in Louisiana. This stable was his way of mentoring younger wrestlers and giving back to the business that had given him so much. Junkyard Dog's legacy is more than just his in-ring accomplishments. It's about the joy, excitement, and inspiration he brought to fans and fellow wrestlers alike. He broke barriers in the wrestling world, becoming one of the first black wrestlers to achieve mainstream popularity during a time when opportunities were limited. JYD's charisma set him apart. Fans loved his signature chain and collar entrance, his explosive power in the ring, and his famous post-match celebrations. But what truly made JYD special was his connection with people. He wasn't just a wrestler, he was a performer who made everyone feel like they were part of something special. For many, JYD was a trailblazer. His success in the 1980s opened doors for future generations of black wrestlers, showing that they could be main event stars and beloved heroes. Wrestlers like The Rock, Booker T, and Mark Henry have cited JYD as an influence, acknowledging the path he paved for them. JYD's legacy also lives on in the memories of fans who grew up watching him. He wasn't just another wrestler. He was a symbol of hope, determination, and the power of connection. Whether he was battling Ric Flair, dancing with kids in the ring, or mentoring young wrestlers, JYD brought heart and soul to everything he did. Even after his passing, Junkyard Dog remains an icon of professional wrestling. He was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2004, a fitting tribute to his incredible career and the impact he made on the industry. Junkyard Dog's story is a reminder of why we love wrestling. It's about the thrill of competition, the power of personality, and the joy of connecting with fans. His legacy will continue to inspire wrestlers and fans for generations to come. And that wraps up the story of the legendary Junkyard Dog. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear more incredible wrestling stories, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Let us know in the comments who you want us to cover next. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.